Thank you for coming back to No Soundbites Allowed with your host. That is correct. It is Michael Voss, Dragons of the Southern Tier, and I am here with my guest from Peru, Eduardo Dibos, and we are having a conversation about Peru, about America, about elections, about a very different perspective of the world. And I think it's a great conversation. Uh, Picking right up from where we left off, Eduardo, I'm looking at, let's talk about the culture. We were talking about that in off camera about Puerto Rico, but we're also talking about culture, whether it be music, movies, the influence of the image of America around the world. How has, uh, was Peru always supportive of America that from your family mentioning to you in the past versus today? Is the influence of movies and TV? You mentioned news, but movies, TVs, is that of impact to your generation?
I would say it's huge, even from the generation of my parents or the generation of my grandparents. They all knew America was growing, I don't know, back in the 30s or 40s, and it was a role model, right? For example, my grandfather went to the same school as I studied, the American school in Lima. It was the only place they taught an American type of education. The rest of society envied them because first they knew how to speak English. Second, they were very related to what was happening in the US, and the priests were from America, and everyone, it was like a mini USA inside Peru. So we opened to the world through the years. The movies started to come, the products started to come. We had American Airlines started a
Mm-hmm.
Lima Miami flight that was very important. American enterprises started here. And just as a fun fact, my grandfather was foundational in that Peruvian American relation since he was a promoter in this and he was the representative of Goodyear tires in Peru.
Oh, you know,
He opened the first factory of tires in Latin America from Goodyear here in Lima, in our city. And they were also car sellers. They sold Chrysler cars, Plymouth cars. All those cars, they I don't think they even exist.
well, they were bigger boats. They don't make them like that anymore.
Yeah. So they were traveling back and forth, my family, to Akron, Ohio, where where the Goodyear plant
Mm-hmm.
is. My father's studied in Detroit, Michigan, because they have the car business there, and it was very related to American culture. That was not the story of the common Peruvian. We know
Mm-hmm.
we are very fortunate in that sense, but they saw America as the land of opportunity. We were poor. What was the first reaction people had? I want to go there. I want to have a better opportunities in life. And they went there. And that's how you have right now 2 or 3 million Peruvians first in America.
That's
So
true.
that was a first impact of culture. Now, how is this in my generation? I can say but one name, internet. I can go to any American page, this platform, Zoom, Google, Facebook, Instagram, it's all yours. It's all yours. The music we consume through Spotify. I'm not a very up to date guy in music, but all your rappers, the moment they release a song in the US, it's already playing here. The moment they release a movie in Hollywood, it's already here. My favorite artists are punk rock musicians, and I've been to their shows because they come here. I've been to the NoFX, I've been to the Offspring show, I've been to the Metallica show. They
Metallica's
all
nice.
come here.
Yeah.
So culturally, we're very tied together. I mean, the streets do not look like America. The people do not look American, but somehow we're always in this weird type of sense consuming America, in our music, in our culture, in our food. 2 weeks ago, I went to the newly inaugurated IHOP. We now have IHOP. 1 year ago, they inaugurated the Johnny Rockets.
Oh,
We had in the 90s, everyone went to the Burger Kings, to the Pizza Hut, to the Domino's Pizza, to the Papa John's. We all have it here. So you're all around us. You probably like molded everything that looks like here through America. You've been everywhere.
well, I don't think that's a very positive thing. And for some people who may have heard the statement, I want you to understand when people from other countries look at America and say, you don't look American or that they don't look American, it's not the color of your skin. They're talking about the way we dress. They talk about the way we speak and the way we hold ourselves. Have someone who's lived in a foreign country, in Moscow, in Soviet Russia, I have heard it many a time. And tell me if I'm wrong here, Eduardo. It's not your color. It's, oh, this is your personality, your persona, your clothing. It's very distinct versus everyone else in the world. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I can agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned the internet, and I'm glad you did, because right now another major issue that's being spoken about is there are continuing congressional meetings between Twitter, Facebook, Google, which owns YouTube and gives us lots of problems sometimes, about their censorship. Now, in America, we have the First Amendment, which I don't think really no other nation in the world has. And that freedom, especially the level of freedom of speech we have, is unique. But and because of that, looking at Google, Twitter, the internet overlords, are their censorship more present down in South America, in Peru? Are people more aware of it, or is it not as restrictive, or is it something else altogether?
My answer to that, Michael, is not yet. The censor and the fact checkers are only working right now in the US. But I fear the day, Michael, that they come to Peru. And I think eventually they will.
That's sad. And I say that because I don't think any culture, any nation, any people who have access to the internet, more knowledge and information than the Library of Alexandria, is now available to any human being who can get to the internet outside of, say, China, North Korea, the socialist nations that block access to information. But everyone else has that. And anything that stops you from having that access, that complete access to that knowledge, is a shame, because it takes away from the growth each person has. That's my personal view. You may or may not agree with that. So is there any talk about censorship, or is that something that's always been there to some degree in the background, or is that something that's becoming a conversation because it's becoming a conversation in America?
Exactly, the latter. Since you guys, for example, I discussed this with my friends 1 week ago, or a week and a half, this happened, when Trump was giving a speech that was like 3 days after the election, and they put him out of her. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he was saying fake news.
The media blackout. Yes.
Media blackout. That's what happened. That was a censor.
Yeah.
And I said to my friends, look, what are they doing? I mean, you have the First Amendment. You should be the role model in that. But you have ABC, NBC, CNN, boom, blackout. And for me, that's a transgression to the freedom of speech, to the president of your country. And what is the impact here? That people here is finding that acceptable. If they say, or they think, look, it's America. if America does it, it should be good. So, as we've been talking about the good things America has exported, you're also exporting your bad things. And automatically, we think they are good because the story between America and us has been good. But this can change and that can be transmitted to us, and that's not going to be positive.
I can understand. So it comes along with if all these other things America did are good and America is doing it, here's this new thing.
Should be good.
It must be good
It's
too.
bias. I think it's a bias.
I understand, and I can see it come. Although I don't think there's many Americans who've considered the impact of that part of it, where our conflicts, our divisions, are also being exported and becoming divisions for others.
Yes.
Um,
yes.
It's a very, I have to tell you, it's an eye-opening kind of thought because I've never thought of, and I doubt most people have thought of, oh yeah, the conflict is going, it's out there. And I know I have people in Germany and Bulgaria and 100 countries in the world that watch the program, but I never really thought, oh, and here comes now our conflict internally is becoming part of their conflict externally.
Exactly.
So that makes me wonder. You have a unique life in that you've been to America, you've been in Peru, you've gotten to see you've been in, as you mentioned, Venezuela. Was that before or after the socialists, after Chavez?
No, it was Chavez. He was in power, but that was still in the good years in
Okay.
socialism, like 2012.
Just as it was starting to decline.
Exactly.
So taking that into view, would you say, are you seeing that people around you, your age, you're in your 20s, are you seeing more of the 20-year-olds in your nation and around there becoming more interested in becoming more radicalized? And if and if so, is it what's the calling? What's their call to action? What's the thing that they're rallying to?
I gotta say that's also a point in common we have with America. The newer generations are becoming liberal. They're progressives. That's the truth. And what I mean by this, very similar. You have with us, for example, one example that's very powerful. Terrorism was a reality in the streets back in the 80s and in the first years of the 90s. Our grandfathers and fathers fought for their life. My generation has not seen that.
Right.
So we had socialism and we don't even remember because we have not, many people are not interested in politics. Many people have not read a single history book and they don't know we have suffered the consequences of authoritarian regimes such as the socialist ones we had and terrorist guerrilla groups.
Yeah.
We had all those. You've never had socialism, and newer generations, the social justice warriors, think it is good because they have not seen it in practice, never. We are having the same similar issue, even though we had socialism 30 years ago, but we have not seen it with our eyes, just as the new generation of Americans. And it's the same story, and we're going through that path.
I would have to think that because socialism has been so close to so many families, I mean, it's literally half a generation away. We're talking 30 years ago. Easily, many people have lived through it. And if they've had, and I know I had the least, when I lived in the Soviet Union, it was back in 91. And yeah, I got to see the coup attempt and the socialism as it was dying off into what it is now, a weird mix in Russia. But that was enough to make me so happy and so thankful for being an American and not having that as my day-to-day life. And I can imagine maybe you've heard this from your grandfather, your father. What I saw was bread lines that were 5 hours long. And if you didn't get bread, you didn't get to eat. You got to see stores that were open 28 days, all month long, but only 28 days out of the month. There was nothing in the shelves except the employees in the store. And then for 2 days, food would come in. There'd be a line 6 hours long. They clear out the place in 2 days, and then there's no more food. Rampant alcoholism and drug abuse because of all the depression and the problems. That's my experience in living for a year and a half in the Soviet Union. And people I've talked to in other socialist nations tell me very similar and far worse stories of their experiences of socialism. I would imagine, say, your grandfather, possibly your father, would have memories similar to that. I'm guessing here. I don't want to put words in your mouth. And if that is the case, how is the conversation between that slightly older generation and your generation?
I mean, I think for my grandfather and father is peaceful in the sense that I'm with them. I agree 100% with them, and they have a conservative viewpoint because they have seen the horrors of socialism. My family was expropriated. We have properties no longer because the state took them away because of their socialist policy. But that is not the conversation of fathers and their sons of my generation. You can have a conservative father, but the guy my age is now liberal because they went to the progressive university where they teach them neo-Marxism or neo-progressivism as they did in the 60s in California with Herbert Marcuse, as they did with you. And now liberalism is good. That's why my generation started to think. For example, they say we need a new constitution to look more like a new republic. That's the socialist.
Yeah, it is.
It is, because our constitution was drafted through the supposedly dictatorship of Fujimori in the 90s.
Right.
For me, that constitution was excellent, even though we need to recognize it had like an authoritarian origin. It was a good point. It was a good true north to follow. Now they say, no, we don't want that, and we want to write everything from scratch. And they want to build a new socialist Peru, which is somehow similar as they want to make with the US. Take away all of your traditions, take away all of what has America great. We're going to build this from scratch, and it's going to look just as I want it to look, which is equal, which is fair, and that's what they're putting in the minds of the newer generations.
That troubles me because in my experience, both personally and in speaking with people around the world, the answer has always been the same, that when you try to make people equal, that means you bring down their quality of life, not bring it up. You're taking away from people and denying people opportunities, and everyone has a very bland, basic survival, but no real life. That's what the experience I've always seen is. So I hope that isn't something taking hold in Peru or the surrounding nations around you. If there's you've been to the United States, you've been in Peru, you've gotten to see a very different aspect. If you are able to, and you are right now, speaking both to my audience and eventually it does filter out to the rest of the nation, the rest of the world, what are things that you would want to say to those who are around your age that are just starting to learn about politics, just hearing about this idea of this great, hey, it's socialism. it's great. What would you say to them?
To never give up their freedom. They have grown up in progress, in freedom, and what is a good country. They're trying to take away what your country is, what your family is, what your surrounding is. You guys being the example for the world. You have your troubles. Not everything in the US has been perfect. You've had troubles.
Give it.
But overall, you've exported the good things. I won't say that we envy you, but we see you as what we want to be. It is a lie that they're putting in the minds of the newer generation, in people my age and even people younger than I am, that America is bad. If you were bad, no one in the world and people in Peru would say that they want to travel to the US just to know. They just putting a foot in the US is a personal accomplishment. They want to go there. They want to visit you. They want to look like you. They want to emulate the same.
Hold on 1 second. God, stop. Sorry, that's my puppy. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And that's my lesson. That's the message for the newer generations of Americans. Freedom is never one generation away from extinction, as Ronald Reagan said. Right?
Yeah.
So you need to defend your freedom. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance, as Jefferson said. People here in my country and people in Venezuela, which I have seen with my own eyes, they're losing their freedom. They lost it in just a decade. Never believe the socialist story or whatever name they put to that story that wants to take away what has made your country great.
Well, let me ask you, Eduardo, and I thank you for taking the time to speak with me from Peru and to give us insight and to learn more about the world in a more direct manner, because sadly, too often we only get 30 seconds of world news, and that's everybody in the world put together on most news programs. Let me ask, for people who want to follow up and learn more, who want to find out about Peru, perhaps about yourself, about the things that are going on down there, and especially if they want to help continue to promote a more free society, not the liberalism, but not the socialism, but the American representative democracy. How would they be able to contact? Is there a way that they could reach out or?
Yeah, I mean, two things. First, I want to give my personal information. I'm over in Twitter. I can give you my info and you can put it somewhere. I don't know.
Absolutely. I'll include it in the description. Absolutely.
So I have a Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm mostly tweeting or posting about Peruvian issues, but I also discuss American politics because I love American politics. Mostly in Spanish, sometimes in English as well.
That's good.
That's where you can find me. And one thing, and you've seen, Michael, I love America. I have a family tradition that we love America, and we've even grown financially and as persons thanks to the relations to America. And one criticism is that I have for you is that it is kind of true what they say, that you only look inside the country. I mean, you said 30 seconds only of international news. You guys should be aware of what is happening outside your borders. Maybe it's not going to mess with your life in that exact moment. It's not going to affect you, but it is good to open your visions to see how the world is doing good or how the world is doing terribly wrong in order to be a better American, to love your country. So you gotta learn, or you ought to learn more about the foreign world, what is outside your borders, what's going on in Latin America, what's going on in Asia. You mentioned Hong Kong. It's very important for you guys. You mentioned Europe. That's all you need to follow. if I would recommend a media outlet, which are very scarce because they are all liberal, I really like the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, I like it.
I think it has a paid subscription, not sure.
Yes.
But what the New York Times, what the LA Times, all those guys are going to tell you, CNN, of course, it's through a liberal narrative of what's going on in the world. There's some foundations or think tanks, such as the Heritage Foundation, that have foreign affairs department, and their experts are always writing op-eds and articles. You should take a look at them. That's a good piece of advice. The Heritage Foundation or the Libertarian Cato Institute, they have good experts in Latin America, Europe, Asia. They're going to tell the story just as it is.
Yeah, I personally do read the reports from the Cato Institute on a regular basis, and also the Heritage Foundation. I know they've done some very good work, so I do recommend them. And often people will see in the descriptions of the sources that I use their information, among many others. And I also watch the BBC, and that's how I know, because I reach out to other sites. That's how I find out about what's going on in Hong Kong. But now I need to add some more in Peru, now that I've spoken with you. And, it's something that I want to hear more about. And I want you to be able to come back onto the program, and definitely we'll exchange our Twitters and we'll keep in touch. Although my Spanish is absolutely horrendous now. Even my Russian now is horrible. But we'll figure it out, and we'll stay in touch. And I definitely want to have you back on the show. And maybe in a couple months, we'll talk again about what's happening in 2021. One thing I should ask before we go, because I didn't bring this up, and it's COVID-19 or coronavirus. It's affected the world. It's a lot of hype about it here in the United States. Let me ask a question. We've heard from some of the leaders in the World Health Organization, the WHO, that lockdowns are the very, very last resort. That's actually a quote of their European chief. And here in the United States, we're about to go into 6 more weeks of lockdown, even though that opposes what the WHO has mentioned. How has COVID, has it been severe in Peru? And are you also looking at lockdowns coming up in 2021?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it has been very severe. We had one of the worst health and economic responses to COVID. So we were in the top 3 of the most number of deceased persons per habitants.
Mm-hmm.
Like, comparatively speaking, the rate was very high. We went terribly. We're like the leaders of South America, along with Brazil, in the death charts. That it was very unfortunate. And not only that, lockdowns not only affected our lives, but they stopped all economic operations. For example, mining. We rely very much on mining, and they stopped mining for COVID. It's incredible. And we had one of the worst economic responses. People that now today are middle class, they're going back to poverty. So their efforts for years to be wealthier, to have more money in the pockets, to have more food in their plates, they have all been vanished because of COVID, in part because of our bureaucrats ordering lockdowns and ordering economic restrictions. It's been very, very bad.
Well, hopefully, I know that, is there a lot of interest in the vaccine that President Trump has helped to fast forward? And much as he had promised this year, that vaccines, we now have heard of 2 vaccines that have been produced. They're going to be sent out. I know there's plans for 300 million initial samples or doses that are going to be sent out amongst the world as well as in the United States. Is that something that's being looked forward to in Peru?
Yes and no. Let me tell you why. We see in the news that Pfizer, I think, is the President Trump went with Pfizer or
One
which
of them is
other?
one of them is Pfizer, and then there's another company that just made the announcement yesterday, and the name is escaping me this second. Yes.
Okay, so we have them, but what happens? While Americans, since Obama and kind of President Trump has kept good relations with Peru, the Chinese have been much more proactive building diplomatic relations and cultural and economic relations. What has happened? Peruvian government signed an agreement with the Chinese government, and before having the President Trump American vaccine, we're going to use the Chinese vaccine.
I didn't.
Imagine that.
Wait a minute. There is a Chinese vaccine.
They're building one. I don't know. They are testing people. They're doing it. I don't know, somewhere in a Chinese lab. They're coming supposedly with a Chinese vaccine
Well,
on the way.
that's funny considering most people think that it started in a Chinese lab in the first place. But I didn't even know that many countries are working on a vaccine. I didn't know they were making deals about getting out the vaccines
Yes.
internationally, even without having something. That's okay. And I can tell you, I don't think there's been really any news in the U.S. about that. And that would affect international politics if they're giving out a vaccine and shutting us out.
Because the vaccines that are of the better quality are all going to be used in the US, in the UK, in France, in Spain. But what do we have? Peru is not going to compete with the US for the same vaccine. The first
Right.
amounts of vaccines are going to you. So what's our other way of having a vaccine? Getting a much cheaper one and a much more low quality type of vaccine, such as a Chinese. So
Yeah.
that's what they have, and that's the fate of the Peruvians, not getting an American vaccine, but a Chinese one.
That scares me. I mean, it's one thing to say, "Hey, I got a cup and it's from China because it's cheap."
Yeah.
Yeah, well, who cares? You'll get another cup. Getting a cheap vaccine is life threatening for many people. And that does not make me feel confident to hear that. But at the same time, it's the first time I'm hearing that. And unless my listeners have heard about it and I missed that news article, I don't think I did. I think it's a first for many people in America, possibly the rest of the world, in hearing that. That may be something, that now that you brought it up, perhaps there's a bunch of elected officials in the United States that we can reach out to
Yeah.
and tell them, this may not be in our best interest to let the Chinese capitalize that. So thank you for bringing it up. That's powerful.
Yeah, and I can look up an English newspaper article for you, and I can send you the link. I promise you that. I'll send you a link about this news. And let me tell you this, Michael, and this is going to preoccupy you, worry you even more. Chinese are conquering the world.
No, I've heard about that. Like in Africa, where they almost control all of the international trade with Africa because the U.S. has failed in that, and I've been speaking about that for a while.
The same here. The Chinese have been very intelligent. They have not only coped or become friends with the Peruvian deep state, now they have the vaccine, but they're also investing in strategic points of our life or strategic points of the economy, such as the roads, the infrastructure, mining. The banks are Chinese. My light is provided by the Chinese company. They bought last year the energy.
Oh, God.
They're everywhere. They're buying everywhere, and they're trying to influence our culture in order to compete with you.
That is, you're right. That is very troubling. That is troubling. I mean, I know they've made efforts to, like Gazprom and some of the others, they've tried to get into. I hadn't heard of success in South America.
Yeah, yeah, they're
But
here in Peru, in Brazil, in Colombia, everywhere, 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 everywhere.
well, again, that should be for people who are watching this. Obviously, economic opportunities exist outside the United States as well as inside. And there are many businesses, even small businesses, that can take advantage of that. And they should. And if you've been thinking about it, here's your motivation. Because I think most of the world, if given the choice of here's the Chinese product, here's the American product, generally speaking, you're going to see more people want to have the American product if it is at all possible, because the quality is going to be better. And I know China will, well, they don't get to see me anyway, so that would have killed the video. They'd have killed the video anyway, but they'll never let me speak there. But I thank you for highlighting that. That is important. And again, that's why I say we gotta stay more in touch, because getting that outside view to see what we don't normally see, what we don't maybe normally focus on, this makes a big difference. So I thank you for that. I always like to end my interviews, and I know we've got about 4 minutes left. I always like to end with, is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you'd like to say at this time?
I think we've touched everything. I mean,
we covered a lot of ground. Go ahead.
Yeah. I have a question for you. You know, I'm a Trump supporter. I have my Keep America Great hat.
Yep.
Do you think President Trump is going to turn the election for him, or it's inevitable? Things.
It's still very unclear. I personally want President Trump to win. I think that there is no question there has been irregularities and outright fraud in many places in the election, because we changed our election system.
Right.
The mail-in ballots as one example, Dominion software as another example, completely broke the confidence in our election system. So even if it isn't President Trump, we have to investigate these things, I believe, so that we regain our confidence in our elections, so that we can say, even if it's not my guy that won, that, you know what, this is the right guy that won, or gal, as it may be. So what I hope is, even if President Trump does not win, which I think he may, we have a much stronger Republican House. We are looking at, most likely, overall maintaining control of the Senate, which means the influence of Joe Biden and most likely Kamala Harris taking over are going to be limited. They're going to have some executive orders they can do, but that is limited in its scope. But they won't be able to pack the courts. They won't be able to destroy the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Second Amendment.
The Electoral College.
Yeah, the Electoral College. They won't be able to get rid of those things.
And one last minute question as
well. Sure.
Who do you think is going to be the Republican candidate for 2024? How is a GOP going to rebuild after Trump? Or it can be Donald Trump again.
I think Donald Trump will be too old at that time. Nikki Haley is one of the names that is being spoken about. Ted Cruz, I think, is also a very powerful name.
I love Ted Cruz.
At the moment, those are the two big names that I'm aware of. There are going to be others, but none of them are quite the same firebrand. And that Trump has been, for good and for bad, he has been a firebrand, and he has really gotten a lot of people involved that might not ever have been before. But I think as a follow-up to him, Ted Cruz is an intelligent, capable man. Nikki Haley is an incredible woman. I think they are, if not the choices at this point looking forward, they are absolutely two of the big contenders. And if that's the bar of quality that has to be met, I think we're in good position. I think that's leaps and bounds ahead of any Democrat that they could put out there.
I saw one thing that worried me very much is that some Republican influencers and people in Twitter were calling Nikki Haley a rhino. And I think that was very unfortunate. I don't know. I was worried about that there's going to get division in the GOP with always Trumpers and that not so Trumpers.
There's division within the Democratic Party between Democratic Socialists with AOC and the ever shrinking rank and file regular Democrats and not the progressives. Yeah. So the next 4 years, we're going to see a lot of people redefine themselves personally on those classic lines and saying, well, I'm a Reagan Democrat, I'm a conservative Republican, I'm all the different variations. And then from there, I think people are going to find that the people who comprise most of what they believe are going to be people like Ted Cruz, people like Nikki Haley, are representing those those hubs of several ideals that people say, well, they've got 70% of what I believe, not 100, but you know what? That's 70% and I can live with that. As opposed to, people like the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that has 7% of real world support, but speaks very loudly. So that's the dichotomy I see coming up.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm now more calm and hopeful about the situation of the Republican Party for the next few years. I think we have good leaders, as you have pointed out.
Well, and they're up and coming. People in your generation are the future.
Crenshaw, I saw this Cawthorn guy. Mm-hmm. We have Nancy Mace, new people that are being elected. They're good.
Yeah, we have a lot of great people in that line. Even people like Tia Love, she was in there. There's quite a few really outstanding people, and I would bet, like in in Peru, that there are people who are going to, over the next couple of years, stand up and say, hey, wait, you know what? I may be new, but I've got something to offer. So that's why I'm looking forward to seeing that next step. Who are the new people who are going to step forward and say, let's fill the vacuum. Let me show you there's even more that we can do. And I look forward to that. And I look forward to that in Peru as much as I do in America. And for those who are wondering, yes, in Bulgaria, Germany, England, Britain, Canada, the rest of the world, I'm looking forward to them having that same experience as well.
I could not agree with you more, Michael. If we lose, we need to come back again even stronger.
That's it. You know what? How many times did Edison fail to make a light bulb? Because he only made it right once, but he made it wrong a lot. But every time he made it wrong, he found a way to be better. And now we have light. Now we all have electric lights. So I like to look at it in that kind of real world way. We're not going to win every election. We're not going to win every race, even though we should, and even though I would like us to. But because we have a democratic system and people vote for whatever reason or no reason at all. But rather than dwell on that, it's, okay, how can we become stronger? How can we be better? How can we be more able to communicate? And if we do that, and I think that's what I suggest for America, and much like you said, that filters out to the rest of the world. We can do this peacefully, and we can do this exceptionally We just have to do it. And that's my message to a lot of people about that. Yeah.
Thank you for the message, Michael. It's also a message for hope, a message of hope for me, since as we spoke about some minutes ago, the left won, and I was devastated. I was saying the right has never been in this bad position as we're today. We're divided, devastated. It's horrible, but I now can see that there is a brighter future. So I think we can make it. We need to renew our movement, fix what is wrong, keep putting together the pieces in order to be better and better every day.
No, absolutely. And you, the youth, are part of that. The new, the new ideas you guys come up with, coupled with some wisdom of those of us who are a little more gray. But it's that combination. It's that combination, that new energy, that new idea, coupled with the wisdom of, and I've tried something similar. Oh, wait a minute. Now, this is a great way to use that. And put those two together, you get great innovation. And I think that's the key to going forward, is mixing those two. We've covered a lot of ground today, and it's been exciting. I love it. It's a great conversation. What I would say is we're going to do it again. I'm looking forward to it. Once we get off, I'm going to get your information. I'm going to put that into the description for the videos. We'll get that out very quickly. But with that, I want to say to everyone else, you've been able to see the show. We thank you for your conversation, for being with us. We're looking forward to your comments in the description, or on Twitter, or on YouTube, or Facebook, to let us know what you think and what we should follow up on. There's my challenge to everyone who watched this. What should we follow up on for the next time Eduardo and I speak? And also I'll say, what's the next nation you want me to reach out to? Who do you want me to speak to in what part of the world? And I'll make it happen if I can. But with that, Eduardo, I thank you. I wish you a peace and wonderful time. In America, Thanksgiving's coming up. You should be familiar with it. So I wish you and your family and the nation a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Likewise, Michael. Thank you very much. It's been great. It's an honor.
You're very welcome.